All right, so let's talk about the first pedal we're going to look at today. It's the Golden Reverberator, and I have yet to come across a guitar player that doesn't love or use reverb in some way, shape, or form. I mean, there's so many varieties of reverb out there nowadays, but the classics are the ones that really I'm drawn to, and I think a lot of other players are too. I mean, you can't go wrong with some of the classic reverbs that are in this pedal and that have been emulated. So speaking of classics, I'm going into a Fender Princeton reverb that's behind me there with the red light on it. That's an old 67, and coming out of that, I'm going to a Universal Audio aux box, and that's going to give me all my cabinet and microphone simulation, so I don't have to have live mics in the room. I use that box every day on all my instructional videos, and TrueFire has one too, and I like to think I help to introduce them to the aux box. It's a great device for home recording and capturing great guitar tones without waking the baby or the neighbors. So, okay, that's the signal chain. Just guitar, pedal, amp, aux box into my audio recording device. So let's talk about what is special about this first reverb we're gonna play. We're gonna talk about spring reverb, and James has probably set you up really well telling you about the beauty of mechanical spring reverb. And it's the thing that was in that 67 Princeton, but those units can be fragile, and I've had several of them break, and once you replace one, it never kind of sounds the same as it once did. So you're gonna get a perfect spring reverb, multiple versions of one in this pedal, and what's really cool about it is the amplifier's tubes are driving the reverb, and that is adding to the sound as well. And all of that has been captured in the Golden Reverberator. So when you're in Spring 65 here on this switch to the left of the pedal, that's where you select which one that you want, and we chose Spring 65. And then over here on the right, there's this mode switch, A, B, and C, and that's going to determine what spring type we're using. So we're in A right now, and that's going to give us basically just kind of a similar reverb to what you'd find in a blackface Fender like that, or in this case, a really great 65 Deluxe reverb. Now, here's my dry sound. Pretty sterile, right? Let's turn it on. Ah, man, transported. Really great reverb sound. Let's talk about the controls and how I'm getting that. We have our decay knob, and that's going to mean how long the signal takes before it dies, or how long before the reverb trail ends. A shorter time means the knob counterclockwise. See? Play, dies. Crank it up, it's going to last longer. Okay? Now, the pre-delay is a really cool knob, but let's get back to that in a second. The mix control over here is going to really blend in between your dry, no reverb signal, to your wet, heavy reverb signal. All the way to the left, dry. All the way to the right, massive amounts of reverb. Okay? Now, when we do that, we're going to really hear all that noise. That's the spring rattling inside of the metal box. They've captured that flawlessly, okay? So that's maybe a little bit of a lot for our purposes, but let's talk about pre-delay. Pre-delay is the time in which it takes for the reverb to start, basically. If it's all the way down, it starts as soon as we start playing. Let's give some more and have some fun. But I want to pull the mix back a little, and what can happen is if you turn the pre-delay up, it'll let some of your natural guitar tone hit first, and then the reverb comes in after. So we'll turn it up about 11 o'clock there. So it's almost like you have guitar tone and then reverb behind it. I love that. So let's give it a little more mix. Now we can be a little more generous with our tone. What a lot of people did back in the day for effect, like maybe Jimmy Page or somebody like that, you can almost use it as a slapback effect. And you can hear that thing crashing and moving around in there. You'll often hear this sort of drippy, watery sound. And that's where the drippy reverb term comes from, okay? So another fun thing that they added was an EQ section, so you can make your trails darker or lighter. I could turn the treble down, I could turn the bass down, I could turn the treble up. So if you have a darker amp, you can adjust your reverb setting to taste. So, one last thing that we got to talk about is the mod control here. Now, mod is modulation, and that usually means some kinds of pitch bending or something to that effect. That wasn't available on normal tube reverbs. So what Universal Audio said was, let's take what's called the wow and flutter of an old Echoplex tape machine, and we're going to add that, and what's going to happen is we're going to create a nice long reverb, and the trails are going to have some really cool ambient pitch bending. So let's create a little tone first. Here. We'll make it nice and long and wet. Oh, hear that? There's the drip. And these reverbs are super dynamic. I can get that drip just by playing harder. So that's just like a basic reverb out of a deluxe Fender, 1965 blackface amp. But let's turn the mod up. We'll make this really nice and washy. If you listen in the background, you hear a little bit of warble. Almost like somebody put a chorus pedal on your reverb. It's pretty fun. And we haven't even switched modes yet to the next one. All right, so that is the Spring 65. And what we're going to do is just walk through a couple more of these presets before we jump into a tune. Let's dial it back. We're going to go to mode B. We're going to flip the switch down. And this is also a spring reverb taken from an amplifier similar to like a Fender Showman reverb. And whereas you had a lot of mechanical rattle with the deluxe sound, let's get that back. Let's see what we can get here. Turn the mod back down. So that's our mechanical rattle. Now we're going to go to B, and that's going to give us a softer sounding reverb on the top end. It's not going to have as much rattle. This is really great for surf when it doesn't get too clangy and get sort of in the way of the player. So maybe... I love this one a lot because I like that softer top end that it gives me. Plenty of drip too. So let's pull that mix back a little bit. And what was popular, oh geez, I don't know when you're gonna watch this, but there was a time when a lot of this stuff started coming back in country. And they wanted that sort of drippy old school reverb, and this would do it in a heartbeat. So it's a little bit more musical and not as raucous as maybe the mode A, which would be more of that Fender Deluxe sound. This is a little softer, okay? So same things still apply. We could still add some modulation to that if we wanted to. Really crank it up. One chord, that's all we need. So beautiful, really, really nice. Okay, and that's still just in the spring category, which is what we're talking about right now. Okay, so let's talk about mode C. Now there was a device many, many moons ago in studios. They always had like big mechanical things to create these wonderful sounds on our favorite records, and then geniuses have put them digitally into boxes. But Universal Audio does it in a way that really faithfully recreates these things. And there was an old studio spring reverb called the AKG BX20, I believe. And it had a very, very orchestral sounding spring to it, okay? It wasn't quite as aggressive as the amplifier spring reverbs were. And that's what mode C is here. So I'm gonna pull the mod back. I don't wanna color it too much with that. And we'll kind of go off of our same settings here. But what I wanna mention too, what I love about these pedals, and I've owned a lot of pedals, you can see them all behind me there. These controls are very interactive. A lot of times pedals, particularly in the digital realm, you'll turn them up and they'll go bananas. This really logarithmically, I think, turns things up in a way that is not going to take your head off and make you feel a little bit like, oh man, that's way too much. Okay, that's what's really nice about these. So let's play another fun chord. Oh, it's got a completely different top end. I can hear the springs. It's so cool. We're gonna really go nuts here. It's almost like I heard James say one time, when you step on a piano sustain pedal, you hear what they call upper harmonics. So you're hearing more notes other than just the notes you're playing. You hear notes in the reverb. We add some mod to that. It's gonna get out of control. It's gonna be beautiful. That's just one sort of category of reverbs, if you will. So you could do a lot with just springs, as you can see. So hopefully all of that made sense. And what you should know is that when we run this in stereo later, I'm going to repeat this throughout the video, is that imagine there are two versions of this pedal inside the pedal, because there are. So if you had stereo deluxe reverbs, you'd have deluxe reverb left, deluxe reverb right. A lot of times in these types of pedals, it's just taking your signal and making it stereo. Not this one. This is sending out two individual signals left and right. Okay, so when you hear this in stereo, it's gonna sound massive and super lush. Okay, so speaking of massive and super lush, I've dialed up a song using mode B, and what's gonna happen is we're going to switch to a preset. And here's how we do that. Basically, I'm just gonna switch in the middle of the song to that preset mode. So we're gonna do something kind of like Spring 65, we're gonna go with mode A, and it's gonna be, let's see here. Actually, no, it was mode A, and it was something like one of those long, super long, nice top end harmonics. But then I wanted to play some bluesy stuff, so I jump over to the mode A that I've saved. A little longer pre-delay so it gets out of the way of my playing. And I did that this way. So all I have to do is dial up a setting that I like. If I'm on the red side here, which is our knob mode, I make some adjustments. All I have to do is take this switch and hold it down, and it will store my preset here, like that. And now it's saved. So I can go right to the next sound. But what's cool is, check this out. Let's say I dial up a knob mode sound here, super long. Maybe I want to go to that long, sort of orchestral sounding reverb. And I want that sustaining. It's gonna ring out. I'm gonna jump over to the preset. It had a beautiful, what they call spillover. We'll be mentioning that a lot throughout this series, but I spilled over from one effect to the other seamlessly with no change. That's a big deal. And I'm gonna do a little bit of that in this track that you're going to listen to. It's sort of a classic 90s inspired tune that I think you might find the chord progression familiar, but it was a lot of fun to put it together. We're going to be using mode B, and then we're going to preset into mode A for this one. All right, I hope you enjoyed, and of course, tabs and tracks will be available for this. All right, let's hear it.